Time for another edition of Todd's Odds with our sports betting expert, Todd Fuhrman. And every summer as we get closer to the start of the NFL season, we like to ask Todd for his favorite NFL bets he'd like to place before the odds start to move a bit as we get closer to kickoff in September. Todd, I want to start by looking at the updated Super Bowl odds. No surprise, Ravens, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, they're all at the top. One team I don't see there, though, Todd Fuhrman, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're in the middle of the pack to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel, despite the addition of Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith and DK Metcalf. So how are you feeling about the Steelers, Todd?
So, I know, Jay, this may be a cliche, but it's one I feel is apropos when we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can only put so much lipstick on a pig, and it's still going to be a pig, which is ultimately the Pittsburgh Steelers and where they stack up in the pecking order for the AFC. Yes, the names and faces might be a little bit different. Their win total right where it was last year. We know that Mike Tomlin has never been the head coach as a member of this prominent organization, finishing under 500. So it feels apropos that the Steelers go 10-7, 9-8, sneak into the playoffs, averaging 13 points per game on offense, and lose by 3 touchdowns in Wild Card Weekend. A tradition as old as time. So no, I am not backing the Steelers in any market, but I'm also not making a case to bet them under 8.5 regular season wins.
So what team would you target at their current value this far out to win the Super Bowl, Todd?
Jay, we've done this for how many years? You think you're going to get me to make a bold proclamation and pick a Super Bowl champion 8 weeks before the season starts? You're lucky if you'll get me to do that 8 weeks into the regular season. You mentioned the favorites, and I do think the chalk is very rightfully priced. If you want to look a lot further down the list, well, you know what? We're just going to have to get people to come back in early September. We can't give everything away here in the middle of July. What fun would that be?
Well, I'll tell you what is fun, speculating who the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback will be week 1 of the National Football League season. So many choices. The veteran Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. I'm not going to mention that other guy who's being paid all that money. Those are your options. Who do you have?
You know, here's the crazy part about this market, and I know a lot of people are going to laugh at what my answer is here, but you can make a legitimate case from a betting standpoint and an overall football X's and O's point of view that if you bet Joe Flacco at plus $1.10 as he's currently being priced, you bet Kenny Pickett at 2-1, as long as one of the rookies don't beat out these grizzled veterans, you're still going to be able to turn a short profit. I think, though, if you're looking to try and make a compelling case for one of these guys, I'd go with Kenny Pickett at a price tag right around 2-1. I don't think the Browns are hell-bent on trying to win a lot of football games this year. I do think we see one of those rookies log reps under center as we progress through the campaign. But I'll say that Kenny Pickett at 2-1 may offer some intriguing upside if Joe Flacco takes on a little bit more of that Reggie Dunlop player-coach type approach.
I can't see Kenny Pickett winning the MVP, but who knows? Here's the current guys better than 10-1 odds. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, the only players right now under 10-1 for MVP next season. Do you like the MVP to come from that group, or are you a big Kenny Pickett guy?
If Kenny Pickett does win MVP, Kevin Stefanski deserves a lifetime contract as the mastermind of this Cleveland Browns offense. You mentioned the short prices on a lot of the prominent names in the sport, and you'd be a fool to kind of bet against any of those players. But I think as we get closer to the season, and even after we have a couple of games under our belt, those numbers aren't going to shorten substantially. So I'll give you one name a little bit further down the odds board that intrigues me. He's got real boomer bust potential, but this has to be the season that we see a little bit more from Caleb Williams leading that Chicago Bears offense. You look at what Caleb has around him with some of the weapons they brought in through the draft, a second season with Rome Odunze, an offensive-minded head coach in Ben Johnson. And I think this is a guy that a lot of people are going to root for. So if the Bears come from off the pace and are able to put together a tremendous offensive campaign, Caleb Williams could see his odds shorten substantially from where they currently sit at 37-1, knowing that the Bears do play a primetime football game under the bright lights week 1.
Todd, I know you wouldn't take the bait when I asked you about a Super Bowl pick this far out. But is there a win total bet that you might jump at this far out before the season?
So I will dole out a couple of win totals that I currently have in my portfolio. And while our friends at FanDuel may not love me saying their numbers aren't not be the best for some of these prices, but I like the Seattle Seahawks under their win total at 7.5. I think we're going to see Sam Darnold come crashing back to earth with an offensive line that's nowhere near as stout as what we saw with the Minnesota Vikings. And for me, the Seahawks clearly the fourth best team on paper in the NFC West. I think the Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of questions to answer along that offensive line. And while I understand why Joe Burrow's odds are as short as they are to win the MVP, this is still a Bengals defense that's going to give up points and do so in bunches. And it's an offensive line that I have in the bottom 7. So if you're looking at them, can make a case to go under 9.5. And because, Jay, we don't love to root against human achievement all the time, I think Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers can surprise some people this year. I think they're a little bit of a dark horse in that division. I like how they finished and the maturation we saw from Bryce Young. I'll take a small crack at the Panthers to go over their win total at 6.5 and lay in that $1.30, $1.40 to do so.
Wow. Todd Fuhrman, very impressive, giving hope to the Carolina Panthers. That's the kind of incredible enthusiasm we expect in the summertime from our sports betting expert out of Las Vegas.